My ex, 24M, and I, 26F, started discussing the US election and then subsequently the Canadian election. We are both generally centrists. I mentioned not loving the deficit the Liberals put us in, but that I will definitely be voting Liberal because of who they chose as the Conservative candidate. He mentions that he will be voting Conservative to get rid of the incumbent since it's what our society supposedly needs. Inflation is high and housing is getting decreasingly accessible. I tried to explain why it was problematic and how in the US elections, everyone said Trump wouldn't actually get around to implement the damaging policies he promised in his campaign, but he actually did achieve them at a great cost to Americans. I told him because of how much this candidate's policies would indebt me if I continue to get sicker and possibly endanger my life in more ways than one that I would be voting Liberal amongst a myriad of other also important social safety net reasons, and he laughed and said his vote would just cancel my vote out my vote then. I got mad. Essentially, this candidate wants to abolish nationalized health care and overturn abortion access. They are a fundamentalist Christian candidate. The fact that this was a horrible person and candidate notwithstanding, this was particularly hurtful for me because I am in the middle of awaiting a cancer diagnosis. They found abnormal cells in my system a few months ago, and I have an autoimmune condition that coupled with exposures to severe past virus has heightened my risk of developing cancer. He was the one who exposed me to these viruses when he came back from past military training sick, and I'm a bit medically fragile. I have both asthma and Sjogren's, so I ended up needing oxygen overnight each time because my blood oxygen was tanking since I was struggling to even breathe. This happened on 4 separate incidents in total, and each time it was him who brought the equivalent of biological warfare home. Each of those hospitalizations would have set me back thousands without free health care. I miscarried his kid 2 years ago when we were together as I had an IUD in place, but still managed to get pregnant. If our laws ended up reflecting the abortion laws of some US states, I could have died due to doctors being unwilling to treat me, or gone to jail for a perceived jeopardization of the fetus. For some added context, he claims he is still in love with me and continues to ask me to give him a chance again. He broke up with me over a year ago last summer and has repeatedly fumbled amending for his various fuck-ups, of which the list includes leaving me alone to deal with the aforementioned miscarriage. He was on a weekend military exercise but could have asked to be excused since he is a reservist, blaming me for ruining our holiday when he got me sick and I needed to be attached to oxygen, telling me he wouldn't follow me to the ends of the earth after I told him I would. I have given up a lot of things for him, including Oxford, breaking up with and abandoning me in an unfamiliar city that we traveled to together, not showing up for my birthday after he promised he would when he said he didn't want to leave me to celebrate it alone in a city where I knew no one, dating his coworker immediately after he cited not being ready for a relationship as the reason he was breaking up with me, getting mad at me because I wouldn't let his new GF sleep in the apartment beside my head so he could save money on an Uber. We lived together for months after breaking up because I didn't dip on the lease because his parents would go under as co-signers. He couldn't afford it alone and it was a studio. Telling me he regrets breaking up with me and then fucking 4 other girls immediately after that statement. Insisting on meeting up over Christmas break and then flaking because he was hungover because he got pissed drunk the night before. Apologizing for his behavior for the last few months and promising to visit the following weekend, which he didn't do because he didn't want to spend $60 on a train ticket. He blew $300 plus at the casino not long before, getting me sick again, and then abandoning me instead of taking care of me, organizing going on an overseas trip with my ex-best friend when I asked him not to, and now this. Needless to say, I wasn't even sure I could forgive all of this, but I'm ashamed to say I was holding on to the memory of the sweet and pure-hearted version of who he used to be. He also would swoop in when I just started seeing someone new long enough to make extremely convincing apologies and promises, deliver on none of them, mess me up some more, and mess things up with whoever I was seeing before leaving a trail of destruction behind when he was tired of putting effort in. And then he would beg me to wait some more. I was admittedly equally guilty because I still had feelings for him. Before leaving to go on deployment, he cried that I would move on and he would never get a chance to fix things, and I felt sorry for him and didn't want to ruin an experience he had been looking forward to for years. I also knew that all of his peers were jaded, and I didn't want him to stop believing in love. Most of his peers around him had terrible experiences with unfaithful partners, and it created really adverse outlooks on romance and love within his institution. He used to be a big romantic, and I couldn't bear the thought of potentially being the catalyst in destroying a side of him I had spent years trying to build up and had such fond memories of being the subject of. I didn't agree not to date, but I agreed not to sleep with a man during his deployment, so the thought wouldn't be lingering in the back of his mind. This ended my ability to meaningfully date. I am exceptionally bad at dating women, go out on a date, and somehow come out with a friend. I'm not perfect by any means, but the cuts were never equal. I have anger issues, and I do kind of attack his character from time to time because I realize I am carrying so much grief and rage around, and it's everything I can do just to not drown in it some days.